First thing I want to talk about today is the piriformis muscle. And you probably are familiar with it because it's that pain in your butt that you've likely gotten after sitting for a long time, or if you've been at a desk for a number of years, or you've just had any kind of pain in your hips and your low back. Often the piriformis gets all tied up into that, or we think that it does. It also is kind of blamed for a lot of the sciatic nerve pain that comes up as you're like dealing with discomfort and all the things that modern life gives you. One of the most chronic things people get is sciatic nerve pain, and they go, that darn piriformis, darn it all. And like, that's maybe not well put, like malevolence to like just the piriformis muscle, because it's this whole big complex thing. Let me explain. So the piriformis muscle is deep inside your butt, kind of where like the hip and the femur and the spine all come together. You see, we're already interrelating here. And part of its job is to provide stability for the femur and the hip kind of interplaying with each other. And it does do some work to generate a little bit of power, but mostly it's a great stabilizer, and then supportive of things like your bigger muscles like the glute max, the glute med, and so on. But when the piriformis has hypertonicity or holds more tone than it should, and that doesn't mean tone like I'm so svelte and toned, it means like the tone of the muscle, literally like how toned is the muscle, how much tenseness is in it. And if you are someone who has chronic tenseness, there's a strong chance that you might have some hypertonicity. And so what that essentially means is the muscle is kind of holding this low level like all the time, and it never gets a chance to go, we're in kind of like the neutral, like not flexing all the time state. Hypertonicity can happen for a number of reasons. We're going to get to more on why that happens in just a second, but know that that can be something that happens. When that happens with the piriformis, it can create some pain around that area, because one thing the piriformis can do is kind of like strangle the sciatic nerve a little bit and kind of compress on it. And as anyone who's experienced any sort of nerve thing, which even if you've never had like a spinal nerve thing, go ahead and give yourself a paper cut and then notice how like alert that makes you to like the sensitivity of your hands. Like, nerve pain is never fun, whether it's a cut or compressing a nerve, it's never fun. And so that can lead to some sciatic nerve pain when the piriformis is kind of too tight and kind of strangling around the sciatic nerve. Okay, so that's like a thing. So what do most people do? They go, okay, I'm going to put the lacrosse ball in my butt, like where the piriformis, where I think it is, and then roll it out, and that'll make it better, right? Well, what do we always say? Our body is always trying to save us and help us out. It never does anything that doesn't have a good reason. Okay? Just like you never do anything without having a good reason, right? So like your body's doing the same thing. So there's a reason that your piriformis is getting a lot of hypertonicity in it, and is worth exploring what that is. It's not simply because the piriformis hates you and is like, well, I'm going to get all tight now. That's not why it's happening. So just sticking a ball into the area to massage it isn't going to actually change the root cause of what's happening in your piriformis and in your hips and in your butt. Okay, so the second part, before we get into solutions, the second part is this. The piriformis attaches where the sacrum meets the hip area. Okay, so where your ilium and your sacrum meet. So sacrum is the bottom of the spine, way below the lumbar, way at the bottom. Piriformis comes up and attaches on there. So when the piriformis gets hypertonic and gets just too much tension in it or too much tone to it, it actually can change how the SI joint sits and is positioned. And the SI joint pain is another thing that also can be felt in a similar area to piriformis pain, but they are quite different. And the reality is that SI joint area needs to be able to have the ability to tip slightly to provide like kind of the life like giving support that our spine does. And when the piriformis locks down on it, it keeps that SI joint in position and doesn't allow it to move along with your body. And if you've noticed your spine lately, it is built to move. It is built to like flow and like dance and bend and stretch and do a back bend. It's meant to like move. You have all of these joints in your spine and they're all meant to articulate. So when one of them gets thrown off, that certainly is going to impact how the rest of them function. If you have SI joint issues, the entire spine is going to be influenced by that, as well as your hip complex. Because again, spine comes down, it's sitting inside the hip complex, and then you've got femur running down here. All of these guys have to talk to each other very well. So one thing you could start doing to address an issue with the piriformis where it's feeling too tight, feeling like it's hypertonic, it's influencing your SI joint, is to actually start strengthening your torso, so that your spine is more stable and feels more secure in your body, and can move safely and with control. So the spine and any part of the body that needs mobility is funny. You want it stable so that it can be stable and you want it to be stable, but you also want it to be mobile and capable of like flowing and all that stuff we just talked about. So going back to our piriformis, to start addressing our piriformis discomfort, it might be a smart idea to actually take a look at your torso. Second thing regarding hypertonicity. Guess what influences hypertonicity? What's happening in here? So we see some connections now as people are looking at, smart people, I say we, it's not me doing the studies, I read them and then I read them to you guys. Smart people who do studies are finding and noticing that our perception of ourself and how we are seeing the world and how much type A behavior we exhibit and how much controlling behavior we exhibit and how well we are with ourselves, how much stress we're under, that absolutely influences the tone of your muscle. So while it would be amazing if I could just be like, exercise A, B, C, guys, that fixes your piriformis, makes your butt really strong, guess what? Those are great starting points, but they also are hopefully for you a launching pad to go, what else is going on in my life that could be influencing this? Do I need to drink more water? Do I need to have a conversation that might be uncomfortable? Do I need to change my job? Do I need to get more sleep? All of these things, okay? And I know some of you are like, ugh, I don't want to hear that because that's like the icky, gross stuff that I don't want to look at. Sorry, I'm just the messenger. This is what your body needs. Yes, there are drills we need to do, like starting to make your torso stronger to actually have your piriformis start functioning better for you. But also, there is this whole thing. You are a whole being that is interacting with a whole world. You might want to take a look at that stuff too to help your body feel and move better.